Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Galactic show. Today, I have my gorgeous friend and astral traveler, author, and healer, Greg Doyle. So, we've been friends for years and years since I think my oldest daughter was about 3, when we used to live in the same suburb. So, it's lovely to have you back on. Thanks for joining us, Greg.
Oh, thanks, Sol. It's such a pleasure. It's great to see you again and be here like this.
Yeah, and it's always lovely to catch up and see your side of like what you feel is happening in the world. So I've waited to keep the questions to on screen because I wanted to ask you live, but there's so much I personally want to ask you about, what you've seen in the astral realms and things. So just to get into it, I'll just share a little bit. I'll just pop up some little screen shares to start. So let me just pop this on. So we are growing as the channel here at Mason Jupiter. We're almost at 16,000. So I just want to say thank you to our amazing soul tribe for helping us to get there. And you can see lots of deep dives and news and things happening. And we also have, there's still a discount code to get 10% off if you use the code word Jupiter with our bookings. And you can see I have the holistic wellness sessions, starseed sessions, and the mystical oracle. And if you go over into the academy, you can see that all of us girls still have courses available as well. So I've enjoyed reading all of the feedback from the aura course and super excited to see many of our soul tribes starting to see auras and even a few getting kind of like an X-ray vision as well. So really super exciting. And let me just bring your site up. I'm just going to read your bio. I'll pop it up on the screen so people want to read along, they can. So Greg has been a Reiki master since 2005 and specialized in energy healing and teaching astral projection, lucid dreaming, Reiki, and related topics. He also has a written popular book on the subject, Awakening the Giant Within, a personal adventure into the astral realms, which details his spiritual awakening and experiences in the astral world. Greg is currently writing a second book on the same subject, which I want to ask you about. And as a former professional classical musician, Greg first discovered meditation primarily to combat stage fright in 1999. He awakened to the reality of the phenomenon of astral projection. This was a life-changing experience, and that expanded his consciousness, changed the course of his career, and altered the perception of his being at a fundamental level. So you're based in Brisbane. I'm down in Melbourne. And you hold Reiki courses regularly and also astral travel workshops, talks, retreats, as well as meditation classes and offering healing sessions as a Reiki master in the Usui lineage of Reiki. So I definitely recommend head on over to Greg's website. And you'll see he's got lots of information talking about like your experiences, talking about courses, and also talking about your Reiki sessions. So I know they're quite popular and that you're quite busy giving Reiki sessions as well. So how are you?
I'm well. Yeah, thanks for that intro. It's always interesting to hear a lot of these things back and almost from a detached perspective, isn't it? Because
It is.
when we get involved in this, I think one of the beautiful things about doing the healing stuff we do is that we're kind of along for the ride of our own life, aren't we? We're just sort of there to enjoy the whole thing. So, look, the Reiki sessions are great. I think the whole thing did draw from the astral experiences I started having at the end of last century now. 1999 was when they started. And I met you soon after when I moved to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Quite bizarre because I was living in Austria at the time when it first started. And what I like about the Reiki for me is that it's just kind of like, you're bringing down these energies into something that is very user-friendly. It's very workable. That's where healing is. I mean, all this stuff leads to healing, doesn't it? Even the astral experience is such a transformative healing experience. So it's just, look, it's a privilege. And I was thinking today when I had a Reiki session just before this podcast, I was just thinking, it is such a privilege to be doing this work and such fun. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
we're talking before about ages and things like this, but it's just, I feel like a kid. I think this energy keeps you feeling that way, where you do feel kind of playful. And I like that. I love that. And yeah, it's such a joy.
Yeah, well, it definitely keeps you looking young, as we were talking about backstage as well. You and I, especially, we love to play, and I think that's what keeps you young at heart, as well as physically looking young as well. So I thought you were the perfect guest to talk about with the topic of interdimensional astral travel and ET contact. So I've got just a couple of little things to share that I want to pop up on our screen. Let me just bring up my little picture. So I have this little one. If we click in here, it's gone back to, let me just bring this up bigger again. It keeps closing. So this is a Vedic Hindu cosmology map, and this represents, I think it's about 14 realms in the Vedic system. So we can see Mount Meru right in the center, which is a place that is here on in the Himalayas. And you can see here the various different concentric realms that are underneath. So talks about, I guess, moving through different like various astral states and coming into various different states of consciousness. And I just wanted to bring this up so that we can have a visual, but I wanted to hear your take as an astral traveler and exploring interdimensional places. Do you sort of have a model that you conceptualize or work with? What's been your experience in the interdimensional side of things?
That is a great illustration. That I love that. Yeah, look,
Yeah.
I think because when we talk about astral travel, of course, we're kind of talking loosely of the whole experience that is out of body, interdimensional. So, because some people say, is it only in the astral realms you go? And of course, we go into higher realms as well. The main thing that has always grabbed me, and I think that has that has kind of kept me in good stead in the astral, is this sense of because it's realer than this reality. So you have this tremendous sense of like the horizons are much deeper. Like you have infinite horizon. You often have, so your perception of things is so vast. So it's the actual experience of it that keeps me intrigued and fascinated. So I kind of detach myself sometimes from what's going on because it's so out of this world, as you know. And I want to be there longer and get there longer. So I found to be kind of more and more detached and not sort of, I don't know, to almost just observe it and lap it up. I feel, so it's not presented to me in such clear terms, that illustration. What I feel is what I call like real-time astral is probably when I go into this kind of fourth dimension kind of thing, when I'm like a ghost in this reality.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I had a lot of that. And even now sometimes. But what really fascinated me was when I launch or just find myself present in a reality that is very separate from this, and what I call a higher reality, in that there's a sense of like you're moving into a higher aspect of yourself. That's how I see it. So this feeling of ecstasy, or this feeling of very enlightened state of being. So we can move, when we say astral travel, from my viewpoint, it's that moving into these higher frequential states of being. So it's just kind of like I just generally blast into higher states of being, and they tend to be, I guess it is structured in terms of, I remember one classic case when I was blasting out away from the earth, and I felt this tremendous band of fear, and it felt like around probably the Van Halen belt in terms of around the earth. And I felt this, when I realized it wasn't my fear, I've been going out of body a fair bit, then it kind of released me. So it's almost like there's these levels you can achieve on, for consciousness. So it's, I think what to impress upon people is it's very real. It's larger than real. It's very full bodied, like you really feel more than your body. And it's just very beautiful. And I think, and to meet these other beings and things like that. So it's a very experiential, it's often like it melds into one and another, like, where are you? Like, so often I exactly what level or what plane I'm on.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the experience and what I can bring back. And more I've learned almost like I will use an intention almost to get to my astral vehicle. But once I'm in the astral vehicle, as in my astral body, once I'm blasting out or going somewhere, then I'll let it take me. So this whole feeling of being guided, of release, of trust in many ways. That's now kind of the thing I fall into. So the things I choose to experience are kind of not as profound as the things I'm led to. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if that answers your question, it's a tricky one.
It does. And I've got probably about 10 questions I would like to
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
you
I'm sorry. So I won't run too long.
that's brought up. Oh no, just even like in what you said then, I'm like, oh, I want to ask this.
Yeah.
Even just hearing you talk about it, and when when we talk about things, we start to embody the energy, and you can see that in the aura. So I could see this almost like a bigger version of your head to do with the energy body and all this gold radiating. To me, you look like a golden glowing being as you're talking about, having these interdimensional experiences. And I couldn't help but just have this really strong sensation and feeling that this is so connected to your soul mission, that it's like this higher dimensional version of you has chosen to step down and to almost come in and out of body to be a translator for what you're seeing, and in touch with, if we talk about quantum string theory or superstring theory, it's like you've still got all these threads that you're touching with your soul and your spirit, and you're bringing back the information for us. It was such a really strong feeling, and to see the
Wow.
visual of it.
And I love it. As you're saying that, I can feel it in me. I can feel your words. I can feel what you're saying. And that gold is very much, that's like in my logo. I have the gold, but it is in a golden kind of energy. And so I really resonate totally with what you're saying. And I feel that too. And, for a long time, I guess, as a child, probably like yourself, I felt a bit at odds on the planet, to cut to a long story short. But then when I started having these experiences, and the first time I had an out of body experience was when a light came into my fire right, and I wasn't into this. I was a musician, and it was a feeling of, do you want to come with me? And it was this beautiful feeling came to my heart. It was this pulsating white light. I wasn't up to the notion of third eye, and that wasn't part of my vocab at that stage of my life. I was in my 30s, and it kind of just like this pulsating light in my heart, and took me down a wormhole, and there was an alien planet, and was so real and so beautiful. And for me, as I was trying to allude before, it was the experience of astral travel is the thing that pulls me back. Like, sure, I saw this alien planet. I recognize it as kind of home, but rather than getting really twisted up in that, for me, it was this feeling of ecstasy, this feeling of a greater reality, like more vision, more sensation. That's all blew me away. So it's kind of like the detachment from what I'm being shown has helped me to get out more. So it's that. So therefore, I've worked at being more detached in this reality so that I'm shown more. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah. And
but
that does lead me on to a question I had for you. Let me know if there's more that you had to add to that. But I really, as a bit of a galactic kind of starseed, not really always being feet on the ground type of person, how do you balance all of this stuff? Because I know when I'm doing my traveling, or exploring, or having meetings with interdimensional beings and things, you feel almost a little bit of reunion with home. It helps to cure this homesickness that many of us that have come onto this earth plane to, to do the work, or to open up awareness of these other realms and dimensions. A lot of us feel really homesick. And that's what I've noticed talking to my clients. And, it is about balance. What do you find really helps you to balance still being here physically in the skin suit that we're in?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That was the first going out of body, and that's when I realized, okay, home is somewhere else, right? So I did deny this reality for a while. I remember my partner Moni, who you know, Moni.
Yeah.
At the time, she said, "Greg, you're very absent," because I just come home and just want to meditate and get out. Like I was, for a while, I did deny this reality. I think what's helped is, ironically, getting into Reiki, where I'm kind of working with real people or 3D people, and I'm bringing this energy into a format that can be that can be used to heal. But also, like I remember my Reiki master I don't know if you knew Sue. Did you know Sue Coombs on the Mornington Peninsula?
Oh,
She
her
was,
name's familiar. I'd probably know her face if I saw her.
yeah, you would. She was just a few streets away from where we all were. You know, we were all clustered. It's pretty bizarre because Melbourne's so big, and there we were so close. She used to say to me, Greg, you've got to ground more. And in the beginning, I wasn't grounding much. I think to survive, yeah, I think, look, I've loved being physically active. That's really helped me. I do take measures, like I've got to get in the ocean every week, at least, because I'm living in Brisbane, which is not really by the ocean. So I do like to go surfing. I like to play tennis. I find physical exercise, even getting in the bath occasionally after a full day of Reiki clients, like I'll get some Epsom salts happening or magnesium salts. So there are ways of, like, I've got to ground, and I've learnt that over time. In the beginning, I paid lip service to it because I thought, oh, I don't need to ground. But I found I'm probably better off because we've got to embody these experiences we have, and it is a balance. As you say, it really is a balance, because one can be just out of body the whole time, but I guess we're forced to ground because we have to live in this reality where we make an income or we do things. So in many ways, like where I've had once in an astral course on this very subject, I had a physical course in my studio, and there were a couple of Tibetan Buddhist monks who came along. It was really cool to hear their perspective, and they're really into astral travel, really into, and talking about karma was great. And I love their perspective. And they looked at us who were in the course and said, wow, from our perspective, we really admire what you're doing, because you're living in, Western society where you're doing these spiritual things, but at the same time, you have to go out and get money and you have to do this stuff. Whereas for us, we don't have possessions, but we don't have to make decisions. We don't have these responsibilities. So, and then I realized it kind of clicked. This was a few years ago, and it kind of clicked. Well, as you say, like, we've chosen to come down. When I say down, into 3D.
Yeah.
We've chosen to come into this dimension for a reason. And it's anybody who's watching this podcast as well, like, to be involved in these things and doing these spiritual things, but at the same time being in Western society. I mean, that is it's a journey, and it's pretty amazing what we're doing, because with the whole cave thing we've done in past lives, we've done that, but we're here in this reality to share and do this whole thing, and that's part of grounding is to actually live, with the physical objects, with the responsibilities, and to enjoy it, and to be, rather than push away and, oh, I wish I was living, because for a long time, probably like you, I just wanted to be living on a mountaintop or another planet. I used to astral travel to this certain planet where I could meditate. To meditate in the astral is the highest form of consciousness from my viewpoint. It's just it's extremely clear, just unbelievable. So
More
to have this,
unbounded.
it really is. Yep, to be in this resistance training like we are, like we're literally in a swimming pool with resistance against us, and that's what we've chosen, and we've got to enjoy it. So that's grounding.
And did you find as well, because, with that happening I think you said it was around 1999, did you find that, because sometimes you can have, you know what, that's it, I'm just going to be normal. I'm just going to try and switch off the noise or switch off the gifts and go into a physical job. I know for myself, I went more into beauty and massage and, spa therapies and facials and things like that, which still, was a touch in the woo, but that was me trying to be normal, which, your clients come along and they're like, there's something different that you do. I know you're doing facials and it's so relaxing, but you either teach meditation or there's something. So it's almost like we can try and hide it, but it keeps coming up. Did you have a little bit of the similar experience that you kept coming back to what you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I did, because and the experience kept coming back. Like the reason I kind of learned to control it to a certain extent, that's why I teach astral travel, is more because it was happening spontaneously so often that I was feeling a bit, I was being hijacked from my life a little bit, because I tried to be a so-called normal person. Then I remember because I was a musician at the time, I remember the last time, what I found when I started having these experiences was that I started becoming incredibly authentic. So in a situation like with my boss or something, I would just say what was on my mind, and people would say that's a good thing, but I go, not necessarily. To important people, I started to see patterns that I was actually kind of short-circuiting my old world. I could see that things were happening, and I remember the last time I ever conducted a concert, I would have mentioned this to you, but I felt my hands physically being drawn away from the music stand, and it was like, oh wow, and I really had to fight to just finish this. And it was like I made a promise, okay, because I was doing, a bit of woo stuff, but still doing music, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to move fully into who I am and what I am, and away from this world that was starting really not to serve me,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, like, I felt I really had no choice. It was like, as you say, predetermined contract. Um,
Mm.
you had to walk into that. It was almost comical sometimes, and then you think, oh, sometimes I remember I even tried a few years ago before I fell fully into this. I thought I might just do a normal job, and I made a few little, and just because I've never had a normal, this normal notion of, and I'm often fascinated. Like I'll often ask clients, like, so what do you actually, like at the desk, like the email, like what are you actually doing? So it's so funny, isn't it? It's so hilarious.
It is. And
It's
it's like a role play, going into a normal job, or I find I can only hold it for so long before like the woo comes out. And it's interesting. I find it's been like Mary Poppins. So it's like you'll go into a business or workplace. And luckily I haven't done that for a long time, but I'd go in, I'd help the people within the business, a bit like Mary Poppins. And then I'd be like, right, it's time for me to leave and go on my way. So
yeah,
yeah, it's like we
and
can try to.
it's kind of fun too, isn't it? This kind of
Yeah.
thing. And also, but it goes back to what you're saying, like when we were kids, like, oh man, I just remember this realization. I was a little kid that life was going to be like a circle. I just realized I'm going to have to go through all this crap and whatever you go through, to return back to what I truly am. And I remember being so confused, like why people weren't more loving toward each other. I don't know if you had that as well. Like when I
Yeah,
look at human politics and relationships, thinking,
definitely.
are they joking? I used to look
Yeah.
at people like, why are you acting like, why are you so removed and cut off? And I was so, and in school too, the way people treat each other, I was just so shocked as a child. And I'm glad that shock never left me, because it's probably, I'm glad I didn't integrate too much, because that probably kept us open for these things to happen. Resistance is futile, Phil.
Yeah, I had to put Phil's comment up. Hey, Phil. So Phil
Yeah,
is a buddy of both mine and Greg's. You guys would have
yeah,
seen him on the show
correct.
the
Yeah,
other week. Um, but I was
Isabella.
going to ask you what you were just saying too, and I will show a little interdimensional stuff that I've got saved that's coming up that will segue into the realm side of things.
Mm.
But just, I guess, a question like for advice for the audience, and even this is something I struggle with at times, is, being an empath and being like super sensitive and being able to, feel energies, whether we're working with Reiki or psychic readings, all of these kinds of things. What do you find has been a good buffer? Because sometimes it's hard to differentiate where someone's energy, say you walk into a room and you feel everyone's energy all at once. Is there a technique or a tip that would really help our audience to
Mm.
feel that they're kind of in their little cone of silence or a little buffer?
Yeah, well, that buffer is so important. I think what I found is, like, I'll always put personally, my way of grounding now before I see clients, what I call grounding, is I imagine like I'm in a column of white light. So I give thanks for being this column of white light, just from the center of the cosmos to the center of the earth. So I feel this feeling of light, like I'm in a beautiful column of light all through me and around me. And I connect that, and I imagine connecting to this like central core crystal of the planet. And it's like a beautiful reddish brownish tinge, and I feel that merging with me. And then yeah, that's essentially, apart from other protection or empowerment techniques I have during the day, I find, if I'm caught unawares, like sometimes a client sitting opposite me and they're telling me stuff, and so I'll put that around me, and I find it's moving to that, as you said, that level of detachment that is not cold-hearted, but actually you're starting to channel. You're sort of coming to service. You're not just, I don't know, it's so hard to, probably many ways to put it into the words, but I find, because I'm not a counselor, I'm not a trained counselor, and what I found is, I guess, like Reiki, you're channeling it. You become that, like you're the observer, you're the listener, and you're kind of, so what the comments or whatever, if that comment needs to come, it's not coming from the human aspect of yourself. It's coming from some greater aspect. So, and then I find more and more, and I mean, we could talk for hours on this. Don't you feel, Sol, that more and more we're kind of channeling our own lives anyway? I feel there's this feeling of almost deja vu, like a feeling that I'm just along for the ride, and there's this going on in the best sense. So I guess that level of healthy detachment is cultivated from having your technique. So that's my personal technique of grounding and kind of just being in that space when a client comes now, to make it quick, kind of thing. What instruments?
Sorry, I was just going to say that's a good little tip, even for going to the shops and things as well, because I find that's where it sort of hits me a little bit more, is going into the 3D.
Oh, totally. And I'll use a white light, violet flame, blue light of Archangel Michael, golden mesh of the Christ consciousness, very much just gold, and I'll imagine like a circle with a cross all around me. So there are all these things I'll do, and I was saying, I find it, if I do that, I feel more empowered after. I do feel a sense of a layer around me, and it doesn't mean you won't have authentic transactions with people. So people think, oh, are you cutting away? No. You'll still have authentic transactions, but you're just not going to take on stuff you don't need to. It's not that it can be inadvertently from people or situations or shops or energies. You're just not going to take that stuff on.
Yeah, that's actually really great too. I just want to ask another little question in that one. Do you feel that that's because, like, you're not leaving like open wounds or strings where people could maybe form attachments and things? So can you just maybe recount that little tip again? So you were saying you do the white light, you call in violet flame, you do a cross and Archangel Michael, was it?
Yeah, blue light of Archangel Michael, kind of, everyone has their own probably version of that, but like a translucent blue light. Violet flame is very good for transmuting negative into positive. So it's beautiful violet flame. And I used to swim I don't do it anymore. I used to swim in a chlorinated pool a while back, and I used to get sick, and then I started using the violet flame, and I never got anything again. So that was very good when I was swimming. Blue light of Archangel Michael, the golden mesh. So what I found is you can often see a golden mesh around you anywhere, like it's in our aura. We have this golden mesh. So this is to do with the astral body. So I find by acknowledging that golden mesh, you're kind of bringing it into life around you.
You can see it when you pop up. If you've woken up in the dark and you're walking to the bathroom, do you see that? Like sometimes, me too.
I remember seeing that and thinking, okay, I'll bring that in as to one of those things I call in. So I give thanks to the golden mesh, and I call it of the Christ consciousness. That's just what I call it. So when I say Christ consciousness, that the ascended aspect of ourselves, that fully embodied aspect of ourselves in higher frequencies. And then I'll also put what I call the Christos, which I've done with Reiki, which is like a circle with a cross connecting that circle. And that is a power symbol you see on all continents, very ancient symbol, often on ley lines or power. So I'll put that around on all 6 sides, and so it becomes like a ball around me. And I'll do that when I go surfing, when I'm driving. If I'm feeling a bit tired, I'll put it around the car myself. Or if I'm sleeping in a new place. And you play with these techniques. And could you say it's being overly protective? I would call it empowering, because we are in a very fluid realm, a sticky realm. So I don't see it as overly defensive. So I think if you're sensitive, you've got to. And just getting back to that question, which instruments I played, violin was my main instrument. Played piano as well, and then I got into conducting and composition and conducting early on, because I loved the feeling of an orchestra. And it's funny because Reiki, you're channeling energy, aren't you? So it's like,
and it's interesting because it's like you're bringing all those harmonies and frequencies together.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at it from an energy harmony point of view. So I've popped aside a few of questions that we've got. So Rainbow Sun and Daughters of Lilith, I have seen your questions. We will get back to them. So if anyone else has questions, just pop them in all caps so I can pop them aside. Because we're going to just show, let me just bring this up and we'll start to talk about the interdimensional side. But it's so fascinating hearing everything that you've got to say. So this little video I'm about to share, we're only going to share part of the clip because it does go for 4 minutes. And I have managed to find a little treat for you guys to go with this too. So let me pop this up.
Blatantly talk about interdimensional aliens and everyone's cool with that, dating back to July 8th, 1947, the exact same date as the first ever mainstream UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico. This is on their official government site. Like, this document actually exists. It's real. And it kind of already told us what all these drones, UAPs, and orbs in our skies really are almost 80 years ago. I'm warning you, this is about to get wild, because a lot of what's written here has been happening right in front of us. The document is several pages long, but this page right here is by far the most interesting. It's a memorandum addressed to scientists and military authorities, written by someone who has several degrees and is a former university department head. Definitely doesn't sound like your local nut job. It goes on to describe the flying saucers, as UFOs were commonly referred to back then, starting off by saying that any plane that attacks these saucers will almost certainly be destroyed, and warning that doing so may cause panic among the public, so keep it low-key. The document continues to explain these crafts in detail, and this is where it gets weird. According to this, some of the UFOs carry crews, like living beings flying them from the inside, and others are fully remote controlled. I feel like we kind of already knew that. Then it gives us a bit of hope, saying that whatever they are, their mission is peaceful and are just looking to settle on our planet. Not the worst news, right? These visitors are human-like, yet much larger than us, and are not from Earth, but from their own world, clearly. But they don't come from another planet, as we would expect, but rather an etheric realm, which interpenetrates our own and is not perceptible to us. Put simply,
So I just want to leave it there. I've just popped the link to that video for you guys in our little chat, and I had it up on screen, so you'll be able to go back and find that. But essentially, this is a CIA document. This was in July the 8th, 1947, I think the document was released, written, and it was actually from this guy. Let me just bring up another screen share. I found... so the man who wrote that paper and submitted it to the CIA, he also has written, or they've compiled his works and research into books. So you will be able to go over to, let me pop this in our little chat too. Oops. So highlight this so you guys can also grab this. Okay, so that's the link up on screen right now, but this is by Mead Lane, and it's the ether ship mystery and its solution. So it pretty much is talking about the things that we're seeing in the skies now, and it's got like a little preference as well at the start. So even just reading that, you'll get like a little bit more info. But yeah, they're referring to them as I guess UAPs, but ether ships, and they've got a mystery and a solution with the subtle flying discs. So yeah, you guys will find this really interesting. I only found this moments before Greg and I went backstage, so I'm like, oh, perfect timing, but I haven't had a chance to read it. So you guys will be able to go and read it as well. So with that last little bit where he talks about being almost like an ether dimension, he talked about it's interpenetrating with ours. What do you feel on that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, because a lot of people ask me that the aliens you meet in the astral, are they real? Are they interdimensional? I feel kind of, what's the difference? They're a bit of both, aren't they? I mean, I have had beings follow me back into my bedroom after, because generally I have astral experiences when I'm sleeping before dawn.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've woken up and they've come into my bedroom and are talking to me, and so... and I'm awake, and I'm fully awake talking to them. So it is curious, isn't it? I feel that, I feel that perhaps like using craft when they get into our atmosphere, but they've gotten here through interdimensional means. And I mean, I know that these places I've been to have been through wormholes, and I didn't even wouldn't have even called them wormholes until I discovered that word after seeing them in films and stuff. So, but that's where you get pulled through in the astral. I think that the fact that this is like an astral experience, an interdimensional experience, and also seen as scientific thing in terms of, they talk about wormholes and things like this kind of stuff. So it seems to be all one and the same, doesn't it? What I found, and you've probably seen yourself in the astral, like at night, like even during the day, like there are ships everywhere. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, and often I'll even have just lucid dreams where, and this is an interesting experience too, where it's not a full-blown astral experience, but just a very lucid dream. So something in the dream wakes me up to the fact that I'm dreaming, and often it is ships. So I'm often outside. I see these very clear ships, like very detailed ships above, and I'm all of a sudden aware that I am there looking at these ships. I'm aware that I'm in a dream. Now, is that an astral experience or not? I'd call that a lucid dream experience, but they're experiences that you're kind of woken up. They're kind of quasi-astral. It's all depending on your level of consciousness, how much consciousness you have there. But what I found is, it's funny, I had for a while, I had a recurring, I don't know if this is relevant, but I had a recurring lucid dream for a long time that there were these ships and I saw lots of humans running away. And then I found, and this was a recurring kind of dream that was interesting. There's a bit of a negative lace there with a lot of fear from the humans. So the last time I had this, I didn't go with everybody. I was just staying there, and they were seeing down these pods from these ships. They sent out a pod that opened up. It's like a glass independent elevator almost. I got in the pod, and there were these two kind of greys, if you like. And I just said, "Where are we going?" And they said, "Home." It was a very positive experience, and I thought that it was interesting because when I say it was a lucid dream or dream-like experience, I wasn't fully cognizant. That's why I was sometimes buying into the fear that humanity was having in these. Because then in a full astral experience, there is no fear, So, but then when I became lucid enough to be kind of detached and just to be present and not to play into the drama, became a very positive experience. And this was going for a long time. And I know a lot of people have these, and we're often shown things in Hollywood where UFOs are coming and people are running,
Yeah.
So when you realize that the drama or the fear is not real, and that's sort of when you embody that, when you just know that, then it just opens yourself up to it. But that's probably a long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's fascinating. I'm just listening, all ears. And I saw someone say before, it'd be an interesting fireside chat with you, myself, and Phil. And I definitely agree. It'd be so good to catch up with you guys in person.
That'd be lovely, because I think that, I just know, and as you know, and as Phil knows, I mean, it's all supporting us. Everything is on our side. It's all a win-win. We're all waking up from this, and the three of us, and along with many people, are here for this purpose. And as you say, it's all part of this disclosure that it's coming now, and the fact that also this whole ET thing, like I wasn't, like, until this wormhole incident, the first time the light came off far, and then I think then not long after I was shown a past life regression. I wasn't even into past lives, but anyway, I was shown this, and when I was shown myself as an ET, it kind of shocked me, but almost didn't surprise me, because I wasn't one to watch these movies on Alien because I felt they were very fear-ridden, so I avoided that kind of thing. So I didn't have any kind of built-in kind of agenda toward the whole ET thing. I was just open. So it didn't surprise me. I felt, once again, this feeling of being more at home. I felt when I realized that, oh, wow, just not that long ago.
Yeah. I guess it can, it changes our perspective on time, I think, when we have these things. And it's interesting because I had that same kind of feeling and going down the tunnel. So I remember flying and floating through this tunnel with two ETs over the top of me. And what I got shown was myself as a very tall almost long-limbed blue ET with a bit of a logo over. How did you see? Did you see yourself?
Also, which I take probably to be Arcturian.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll have tall Arcturians that are quite a bit more lanky compared to the Andromedans, and sometimes you'll have shorter Arcturians. There's also tall or blue Syrians as well. There's a few different races, but very interesting that we were from the same group.
Was that kind of and seeing the background. I remember at the time seeing the background also in this kind of like slideshow, and there was this astral wind going on, and I remember the eyes were always in the same place. And I saw a few different lifetimes and a few different human ones as well. So it was showing me a temporal, it's all happening at once. But I remember the feeling, and I think that's what's kind of the critical factor is how you feel when you come out of these experiences, because it's not in the realms of logic. So I remember coming out of it just feeling better. I felt more me. Like I felt more connected to what I am rather than constantly querying what is this human life. So I think when we have these experiences, it's just a full download and an immediate embodiment of something that cannot be learned probably through just reading a book or learned from, like, it's just an experiential firsthand embodiment,
That's so perfectly said. That's what I've experienced as well. With this one, what Janice is commenting, they are looking for people that can talk to them telepathically. That was also my feeling as well. And, it just I know Phil and I talked about the telepathy tapes on my show through the week, and it is definitely an easier form of communication where there's a lot more clarity and less misunderstanding, less twisting or manipulation of words, and more kind of pure heartedness. And I think when we can open ourselves and raise our consciousness to be able to open our hearts, especially because that's the part that's really involved with telepathic communication, when you're wanting to project or receive, because the heart being magnetic. Did you notice that you also experienced maybe perhaps a deeper level of love connected with this higher state of consciousness?
Oh, totally. And that's the crux of it. That's what kept me going back for more. And as I was kind of harping on about the detachment, it was almost not so much the logical experience, but that feeling, it felt so right, felt so good, felt so pure, felt so elevated. You can't forget that. And it's that feeling of, it is a feeling of unity consciousness, isn't it? It's a feeling of, and it is a feeling of love, if we put it that way. And also the telepathy thing I found in the astral, it's only telepathic, and it's such a, that also is a heartfelt thing. Like they pull it, it's almost through your heart, then out your crown. And it's all, I feel that the being that is wishing to receive your dialogue, they kind of extract that from you in the best sense. So it comes out of you, and you don't even, there's no kind of volition. You don't really choose the words, but you often hear them in words, but they're words that, like, they're so perfectly scripted, and then the words know you better than you know yourself. And vice versa. So it's such a beautiful way of communicating. And I've often wondered about that. And I look at the so-called five senses. How it's funny how we have separate senses as a human, whereas in the astral it's a one sense. But there's no talking is not a sense, and that's why things are so convoluted and so confused. It seems to be built into the 3D matrix is confusion.
I think you describe it so eloquently. And the other thing with it is, it feels like there's emotion behind the words. It's not like we're just hearing the words, when we're audibly speaking. And I've often talked about with light language that, different tones, different sounds or frequencies, even one sound or one pitch can be like a book of information coming in, or, when you experience it in your energy field. That's also what I've experienced with the interdimensional, connection with beings that are living on other planes of existence. I'm going to ask some of the questions that some of our beautiful soul tribe have for you as well. So
why do you get there? I just want to ask you, because I want to ask you about the light language. I'm fascinated. So tell me just a little bit about that and that process.
Yeah, so with the light language for me, I feel, or when I'm doing readings, I guess I'm connecting to the part of myself on a soul level. So, and I haven't really talked about this too much in public because a lot of people just assume, oh, you're just talking with the guides, you're relaying information, which is true to a degree, but I'm actually connecting to the bigger part of me that is, I guess, too big to exist and to cram and fit in a human form or human body. So when I'm streaming and bringing through light language, it's more, I would say, a language that connects to home, whereas English I have to logically think about, and I have to, I guess, use mental capacity, mental brain power, where if I'm bringing through light language, it's a streaming of consciousness that just is almost like it helps me connect to home. So there's different healing energies and activations that can come from these certain pitches and sounds. It's more what I would say is a vibrationally felt empathic language that opens up to different states of awareness compared to, I guess, the English language, or, if we're speaking Spanish or something, which is more, there's one kind of, or maybe, just a couple of dimensions. It doesn't sort of have that escalation or the same sort of, I guess, pattern or frequency like light language would have. But it's interesting because it is written in the Bible talking about light language, that there'll be people that speak it and they activate others, and these others will go on to speak it and activate others. But it also talks about that there'll be those that have it as a God-given gift. And I think it speaks about that in the Keys of Enoch book. And Rudolf Steiner also talks about that there will be people that see letters that are in flames. And I sometimes will see light language like that, and that's in the Keys of Enoch as well. They've got Hebrew letters in flames, which is essentially like ether. So it's I guess it's a language that's multidimensional in that it connects us to the ether and connects us to plasma, connects us to the multidimensional side of things. It's hard to put into words, but that's my best way of describing it.
And do you teach that to people too?
I have done in the past on activations and things. And I guess it also goes with the musical side of things. It does. I've got CDs and things that I've done in the past, and it's still available on my website for people to listen to, or on YouTube to experience that. But I do find it is something that I love it when you're in that moment, because the words will come through for what it is that we need. And I might do a little example maybe at the end before we finish, but I want to make sure to get your questions. Rainbow Sun, but thank you for asking that. So Rainbow Sun is asking to hear more about the Pandora star light therapy. I think we spoke about that last time.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And I think I might have mentioned to you, once again, it was what got me there was synchronicity. Like 3 people in a couple of days told me about this light, and I never heard about the light. So strobing light, I was new to it at the time. Exactly. And so then the guy who was the distributor of this light, he's from WA, and he said, look, I contacted him. He said, oh, you're the astral guy. Can I come and experiment on you and stay there, and you can have heaps of sessions? So he came, and I tried this light, and what I found was, so it's just a strobing, so it's just LEDs that go at certain frequencies, and you get brain entrainment. So whatever frequencies that's going on, your brain will entrain to it, like resonance. And so I found, look, the upshot was that night when I slept, it was like I was the caretaker of my own mind, and I wouldn't allow any anxiety into my mind. So I slept incredibly well, and I was watching I was overseeing my sleep, right? Which was an unusual situation. Sure, I'm used to astral stuff and all that, but this was different. And I felt that good the next day, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get a light. So I remember just placing it in my aura, because they're quite pricey. They're made in the UK, and then not long later, I got in touch with the guy, Todd Akamesis, or now his name's Falcon Akamesis in the UK. And he said, are you anywhere near the Gold Coast? So there was one I was able to get for half price or something. But it was amazing the way it came in. So I found look, there's a few different programs. I found it's really good for any kind of thing. If you're starting stressed, you get under it and you feel good. So they use it in the UK in hospitals for SAD, seasonal affect disorder. It's used against depression, in clinical situations. In Australia, there's no real regulation for that, which is probably good. But yeah, it's just, and it also, I find sometimes coming out of it, like you'll have a session maybe for half an hour, and you it's very busy, and you see lots of colors and geometry, right? even though it's only white lights strobing. And then sometimes you come out of it, and sometimes I'll see mandalas that are 3D or 4D, and then I'll kind of come into reality. So it's very cool, a great experience, and quite kaleidoscopic, and it's very healing for some reason. It is interesting. Got to try it if you can.
And I think that there's not enough released information-wise about the lights and how it affects us. I know even the ears actually have, they call it auricular sensors. So there's little sensors in your ear that actually perceive light. So you can even flash or strobe lights in your ears, and it will activate you into a deeper level of consciousness. So so I wonder if, there's other parts, or even when we think about cellular level, like because the eye cells that we have are also in the skin as well, like to do with the retina. So I wonder if there's, you're picking it up on that multidimensional level.
Totally. And I think it's like, the ancients would have sun gazed. We would have had, we're designed to be around fires at night.
Yeah.
And strobing light. Like we would have told each other stories while hypnotized by the fire. So that's kind of, now people have televisions.
Yeah.
Which have other programs. And Deb makes a comment too about, can it be used negatively in the CIA? I'm sure it could be. I mean, I think if you were to use that with hypnosis, some line of hypnosis, because you're at that time you're very open. But if you can use it positively, like anything, any of these things that can be, it's like the opposite of Reiki would probably be voodoo. Can it be used to access past lives? People have asked that. You probably could. I found that I often learn a lot from clients. Like some clients know about these lights, and they have certain intentions. So I found to go under with an intention can take you to have some vision of something. So I would say, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be interesting. You have to maybe give us a little report back. Let us know how you experience that.
Yeah.
Oh, this one from Daughters of Lilith. Do you know anything about the beings around Orion's belt?
Not specifically. No, I couldn't say I do. One could look into that, and that's one thing. Like that's a perfect thing for remote viewing or for the astral experience, even asking for lucid dreams. So I'd say what is good, and this gets into your topic about interdimensional connection to ETs and that. I think like to go to sleep or to have the intention to meditate and just feel your field expanding and this wanting to have a certain answer, like what is it you would wish to experience? And because I thought about when this podcast is coming, like how does one connect? How does one actually do it? And that's where meditation is good. But I'm into kind of what I call dynamic or active meditations where I have a certain focus, like I'm relaxing, but I'm imagining myself the size of my bedroom, the size of my house, the size above in the forest, going out into space. And if I can fall asleep with this expanded sense of awareness and consciousness and have an intention of what I want to experience, that can lever me or catapult me into the astral, especially if I hold that intention kind of, if you like, almost passively within my field for a couple of weeks even. When I say passively, I mean not getting too caught up with it.
Yeah.
And the detachment, like, kind of looking forward to the experience, knowing it's going to come, pulling it into you. And so with a lot of this interdimensional stuff, I feel it's kind of meeting it halfway because the interdimensional is all around us. It's not an add-on. Even astral awakening or the astral experience, it's not an add-on. It's a letting go.
Yeah. That's so true. And we see it, vibrating and passing our fields all the time. We see it with the fairies and things that are, in some of the videos. Rainbow Sun had a great little add-on question. Do you feel that it could be used to set your intention before working with the Pandora?
Absolutely. And that's a perfect question. And that is really, I found the most successful experiences are that. Like I've even got a program called Reiki, there's so many programs. And I've sometimes experimented, like, which is better. I think it's the intention that's there. And I know, like, logically, I'm going under a healing program for half an hour called Reiki. Like, what's going to happen? And I found that, like, I remember the first time I did it, as I came out, as I was coming to and sort of coming, sort of because it puts you to sleep after a while. It's so busy, the lights, you actually go to sleep.
It sounds
And as
relaxing.
it's very relaxing. And as I came to, I saw one of these really ornate Buddhist mandalas, right? Really ornate, right?
Mm.
And around the frame, like there was movement, like that. So the mandala was alive. It was
That's how
actually,
I see them.
yeah.
Because they're
And
vibrating.
it was vibrating and moving. And as I came out of it, I sort of looked at it, and the logical aspect of me when it was coming to kind of said, holy shit. And then, of course, I woke up. But that's okay, because I went through that transitional phase, and that logical aspect of me is going to say holy shit in the best sense. But whatever that healing was needed for me, like it just showed itself as a mandala, but logically we don't know what that means, and I know now as a Reiki channel over years, I don't know. But that's how it showed itself. And so very much so with that that notion of healing, I think the intention, our power intent, and funnily enough, my second book I'm writing now is a fictional book, like a spiritual adventure with astral experiences, and it's going into how the power of intention is so important with what's coming up in the new earth. The power of intention, people cannot realize how important enough it is to kind of have this visualization, have this kinesthetic feeling for what we're moving into, what we want to move into. And that's what's peeling itself back. It's not adding on, it's peeling back. Because as you know, these higher realms are beautiful. That's where we're from.
Yeah. And I love the synchronicity with Jake and Corbin having your book on their coffee table, and they didn't realize that you were the guest on the show today. So, it's really synchronicity. It's to pay attention. But I think that, or intention as well. So I think what you were saying about setting the intention for, and I just wanted to share. So you'll find so much information on Greg's website. Really, it's jam-packed, full of all little treats and things to look up, and courses, and your book, and the services that you have too. I want to make sure to get to, let me just find. Okay, here was one from Tim. So, Greg, do you think that it was fairyland in the old days now, or astral, or other dimensions? That was a great question, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. I think it is all one, because you met a few kind of Icelandic people who were really into the fairy thing, and even my dad, was Irish, and he talked about that as well. I think he funnily enough, back in Ireland when he was young, he was trained to be a Catholic priest, but he said one day, just reminded me, when he was quite young in his 20s, he saw this UFO hovering above him. That's the only time he only mentioned it once. Wow. He said it just changed his whole perspective. He said it was so real. I never forget that. It's funny, I'd forgotten that for probably 30, 40 years.
Oh, wow.
No, that's interesting. That comes back. I think it's probably all a similar kind of thing. I've often wondered about that myself, the experiences people have. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I've kind of seen it all. I've seen these kind of fairy-like individuals. And as I say, I do stay detached. I don't need to necessarily label them. I think different belief systems, like, I've also had, felt, I've heard the Om in the void, in the astral void. Like an AUM, like a very deep, and I'm not a Buddhist. So I think, plus the Lord's Prayer, I'm not a practicing Catholic, but, I was once channeling, or my highest self was telepathically bringing the Lord's Prayer through me during an astral experience, and my physical body experienced levitation during healing. So, these are things I can't get my logical head around.
Yeah.
We don't need to. I think I'm probably not really answering the questions. I think it's all part of one. What do you think about this? I think it depends on, all these traditions are feeding into the ether. They're all there.
Yeah. I feel like perhaps like plasma, because it is one of the, biggest things in our world or state of existence. And I think that maybe that's that gel, or that's that sort of tangible, non-physical thing that connects all of us. But if I think about it like frequencies, and us being like on a 3D frequency, and also oscillating in and out of that, and these other beings just like radio stations being on other, I guess, bandwidths. So it's almost like we are kind of intersecting each other, and we are able to tune into all of these multitude of frequencies. But I love what you said before, that it's not so much about, having to kind of hold on to things. It's almost like letting go and seeing what comes, because you will get the most important thing come up. That's what I find when I'm doing sessions with a client, and I read the aura, and then spirit will give us more information about that. And they quite often will go to the most important thing that we're to let go of, so that we can sort of prosper or head to like a higher state of our potential. So I do believe that there are positive interdimensional beings, whether we call them ETs, extra dimensionals, that are wanting to help us. But I do think it is about that letting go. And I love talking with you because you have so many similar experiences, like the mandala, like you talking about that it's sort of, vibrating and moving, and it's not like a flat 2D object that we see. I do want to ask you about the ones that you've got in the background, because they just keep calling out to me. What's the significance of, like, what were you feeling drawn to putting the pictures up?
Yeah, well, a friend of mine is an artist, and I just asked her to draw me some.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're interesting, aren't they? And yeah, and it's funny because, like, she does very different kind of work otherwise. So I guess I just let her a few years ago now. She did those. So yeah, it's curious, isn't it? There's this modern aspect of things too, and there's a bit of this, like this one here's a bit of a navigational aspect to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that this one here's kind of almost a release out, and this one's kind of almost like a pulling in. So, not logical. I just thought I'd see what she comes up with. They're actually they're beautiful because they look very 3D. You can't see it.
They do. And I'm sure they're even better in person.
They are. In person, they look really 3D. They're a bit greenish, because you know how true black and white is sort of a bit greenish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So it's done with ink. Yeah. So anyway, it's one of those things that I felt, because I knew her, and I just said, "Can you do me some?"
Yeah.
And then,
Oh, this actually kind of links in. So Tim's saying about people reading with their fingers, with shapes and geometries, and even like scripted light language, and working with the tarot, I find, if I close my eyes and I feel into the energy, like with psychometry, I'll get a download or message. That could be a fun little thing for you to experiment with your pictures, if there's, a message or codes and things hidden. Yeah.
I like it. Very much so. I remember once, before my kind of astral awakening, I was my older brother was living in Montana, and a beautiful area, and they had kind of big wildcats around. It was very cool. Anyway, I went to sleep in this spare room. This is quite a few years ago now, and on the wall was this drum, a handmade drum, a Native American drum. I didn't think much of it. I remember falling asleep, and then this face appeared in the drum, and the face was looking at me and started to talk to me, and I was just freaked out. I remember coming to, and it's funny because you think of a drum and the hands on it and stuff, but I just remember and I had to move the drum from the room because I couldn't sleep with this. It freaked me out because I wasn't aware of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not totally related to what you're saying, but
how it creeped in for you.
It was really
like they're opening the door, checking if you're ready.
That's right. And I used to get scared because there'd be ghost things. But looking back, they were beautiful. I remember this beautiful experience when this purpley blue kind of like sparkler mist just came over me and had me connect with a friend of mine who just died, and said, oh, I never forget. And I was sort of woke up from the dream, and this mist was there, and it said, "Greg, do you want to connect with Slim?" And I remember his name was Slim. And, this was in my probably mid-20s. And I said, yeah, sure. But I was actually kind of freaking out because, am I awake? Am I not awake? And then I thought of him, and he said, and the energy said, just this mist.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I can feel him. And the energy said, no, you can't. And he said, focus on him, and I focused on him, and I felt this invisible hand. I could feel his hand in my hand, and I just freaked out, And I was just like, for a year and a half after that, I used to have the nightlight on, and I was taking bloody sleep medication. This was because I saw it as like, but in fact, looking back at these experiences, they're all actually positive. None of them were negative. But I like the idea of the fingers, and because I think with Reiki too, I mean, if you think of it, often I'll getting back into this protection notion of, when you're a healer, how do you stay out of that? Often, as you will probably feel too, you can kind of sense the drama of that person, but I don't need to embody it. Like I'm detached from it. Like occasionally I'll delve in, but really the Reiki is flowing through anyway. I can go anywhere and it's coming through, and they're having this experience. So that's what I teach with my students too. We don't necessarily need, especially as empaths, to delve, and we don't need to embody that trauma.
Yeah.
To be effective healers, we don't need to embody that trauma, but you can occasionally duck in and get it. I'll ask for messages from the higher self, and often hit right to the point of that person. I'll just present it to them later, and when they're very open. So so I'm going to plug my computer. But
yeah, sure. And I've got a question I'll read out to you while you're doing that. So Deb is asking, is there a recurring message that you receive, Greg, for us to move forward with love to be as one as such?
That's a good question, isn't it? Because it is interesting how generally with clients, particularly, as you know, particularly people you don't know, when you have clients, it's kind of almost easy because you don't know their saga. The current message we receive for us to move forward with love to be as one. I guess one of the biggest messages is to really truly know that we're not alone. We've never been alone. And not only kind of are we coming home, and that it's a win-win. Like, even though this world looks chaotic, it's a win-win. It's a perfect state we're in. To know that really, and this is what we're talking about with intention, home is actually here. We're actually drawing home in. So it's like there was a great film years ago where this other Earth, I think it was called Another Earth, where it was coming closer and closer to Earth. Do you remember that film with someone made, what's her name? This actress, Marty someone, I think. Anyway, and it was called Another Earth. And this film was a kind of French film. And so I think I think it was called Another Earth. Pretty cool movie, kind of weird, which is not bad. But I have this very strong feeling that we're merging with like a truer Earth, if you like. So that's why all these things are, the unraveling is occurring, why there's apparent chaos. But that probably that recurring message to a lot of clients is that they're not alone, that there is guidance. And I think when you've actually met guys, I remember early on in my astral career, if you like, I kind of demanded an answer. I was having these astral experiences, a bit random. Sure, I was being, it was very personal, but alien, all this kind of stuff. And when I kind of felt energetically, okay, give me something I can hold on to. That was when my guides came, these particular guides at that time, and they showed themselves to me. They kept pulling me out, even though I wasn't asleep. They pulled me back to the same place. They were telling me personal things about myself. And it was kind of like this absolute knowing that, wow, we actually have beings who guide us through life. And there's nothing, everything is in your favor. That's what I've learned. Everything. I know it looks like we've taken sometimes the wrong turn in our life, but if you look at it, you've gotten to the point, everybody now watching this, you've gotten to exactly this point where you are now. And it is a perfect cosmos. Therefore, you are in your perfect point. So every decision you've been made, regardless of how duality kind of seasons it or how it shadows it, it's been the right decision. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at that point now. Duality will say, oh, no, we're not perfect. We haven't made the right. No, it's perfect. So to allow ourselves, I guess, to to acknowledge our perfection within us. And I'm not talking about being, oh, I'm a goody-goody. No, we are perfect beings. And I think to realize that more and more, you're kind of meeting these realms halfway. So to fall into your perfection every night, you have more of a chance of going astral consciously.
Yeah, and we've got some beautiful comments, and I can see that people, in our beautiful soul tribe, they really get a sense and understanding of what you're talking about. So we've just gone a little bit over. So I'll start to wrap it up. I'll do a quick little bit of light language because I did promise that earlier. So we'll give just a moment. So if everyone wants to just close your eyes and take a few deep centering breaths, and I will translate into English in a moment. Alusonar gaya neher toeranar. Mianar tola korenar to hesatara. Ia shalanar gaya no hayar to koyara. Ia salana toela gaya neher to kor. Mia salanar gaya yo nare te gaya. Ia shalanar to koyanar to kor. So what I kept seeing was us in the earth realm and going to sleep at night. I saw this beautiful energy, almost like a reverse funnel, funneling up from the earth realm consciously and going and connecting in with, I just saw like a swirl of a galaxy. And I saw this huge amount of beings that are waiting there for us to connect with them. So it's almost like they're waiting, and there's a beautiful kind of, I don't know the word to describe it in English, but there's sort of like, there's like an excitement or a joy, just like Christmas, and waiting for people to discover these realms and to go to these places to discover bigger parts of who we are, bigger parts of like what it means to be down here on earth. But yeah, it's just, there's a joy and a love and an excitement waiting for us to discover these aspects of ourselves. So yeah, that's the translation. Let me just pop up your website as well, because I want to just leave people with where to go for your courses and events that you have. And are people able to do the course? Is it something that you can go and do at any time?
Anytime, yeah, that's the one on top. If you go to the top of that page, I think the very top of the page, the breakthrough course, that's kind of like, yeah, that's right. That's like the
cool.
They can go there at any time at all. Actually,
wonderful.
Actually, I can. If for people on the show, that's $297. It's quite a lot of stuff actually, but I can give a $50 discount. I'll get it up after, if you like. I'll put a how can we do that?
Maybe if you come back into the YouTube and maybe add a little note.
I'll make a discount. I'll make a coupon code. I'll put a coupon code in there, so people just wait a bit. That's really good. A lot of people have had great experiences with that, and also I've also got like a lot of people do Zooms with me. Even today, after this, I've got like a couple, a couple are coming to do an astral consult at the same time. So I'm just teaching them certain frequencies or certain. So there are things happening all the time. I will do more, as I was saying to you earlier. I'll do more online things this year as well, in terms of astral stuff, because I think that's for people to experience it themselves is what it's all about. And also in that online course thing, I've got like a little free introduction. It's like a 7-day astral, just with 15-minute meditations, a 7-day astral challenge thing. That's also on the online. People can try that for free as well. But thank you for the light language too. I really enjoyed that. I just I'm a bit fascinated by that now because
thank you. Well, always happy to chat to you about that too. I just want to remind everyone to please like, share this out, especially if there's people you know that are really interested in astral travel, the interdimensional aspect of things, and how you can have your own personal contact. What Greg's teaching is quite amazing. And also we have the How to See Auras course, and we've got Sophie's and Julie's workshops as well. But yeah, do go on and have a look into Greg's website, because as Rainbow Sun said before, there's so many gems there to go and see. And I do have the coupon code for if you guys want to book a session with me. I've got a few spots available, I think, for next week. So please use Jupiter to save 10% off. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. I always love our chats, and I love that there's always a beautiful synchronicity or a confirmation for myself personally and for the audience, with things that you share, it's very much, I love how you're an experiencer. It's not just something you've read in a book.
Yeah. No, and it's such a joy always talking to you, Sol. As you know, it's such a joy because I feel like, coming home, it's like coming home. And I think, that's what I'm all about, the experience of the whole thing. And I think that's what I like to share with people, is to have your own experience,
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know the audience appreciates, and we would love to, they appreciate you, and I'm sure they would love to have you back on. But you enjoy the rest of the sunshine up in Brisbane, and we will see you shortly.
Thanks, Sol.
Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.